Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we have entered day 149 of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And today we have received intel that Project Emma would be deployed to the combat zone, specifically in the area near Kherson. And folks, that is not a parody. That was real on that last video. Anyway, a little bit off topic, and obviously that was a joke. But yes, that was not a parody. That was real. Last video, and that's been out for some time for those who have never seen it as well. But obviously the fighting continues. We are starting to get reports that a number of new weapon systems may be transferred to Ukrainian forces. Obviously, we've seen the HIMARS deploy to Ukraine. I had talked about the possibility that HIMARS has been present in the combat zone for actually some time, but being used more or less covertly. Now, at the same time, we continue to hear that the ATACMS, the long-range semi-ballistic precision-guided missile system that can also be fired from the HIMARS or the MLRS, has not yet been deployed. But when the HIMARS was deployed, that has kind of opened the window for the deployment of the ATACMS weapon system to be handed over to the Ukrainians. Now, I've talked about before that if we start seeing the widespread use of long-range ballistic missiles against targets, either in the areas that Russia control or, for that matter, inside of Russia itself, I believe we could start to see a great escalation of the conflict. And if you look at some of today's headlines across Western media, one of the key elements that I notice in terms of the narratives that is coming out is one in which it states and it's a question being posed to the audience: is Russia running out of steam? Now, obviously, there has not been a great deal of territorial movement over the course of operations since the taking of Lysychansk and Severodonetsk and the collapse of the Ukrainian cauldron near that area. But the Russians continue its long-range artillery operations against targets against the Ukrainian forces, specifically in the eastern combat zone. Now, I'm not sure what the definition of running out of steam is. It could be loosely articulated, and it's a narrative that is easily stated by the mass media, given the lack of territorial momentum we have seen on the ground. So is it the issue that Russia is running out of weapons? Are they running out of manpower? Again, we don't really have that sort of information that could be perceived as reliable or not reliable. It just really doesn't exist. A lot of the information that the public is clamoring for is state secrets for Russia, as it is as well with at least on the surface, the Ukrainians are treating it as such as well in terms of not releasing a great deal of information. Obviously, the Russians did take casualties. I had observed a couple of the comment sections that here at the site, at the channel, we talk a lot about Ukrainian casualties and not so much about Russian casualties. And again, as I said before, yes, in the early stages of the conflict, when the Russians were conducting large-scale maneuver operations, looking for that that decapitation strike against Kiev. A lot of Russian supporters do not agree with that assessment. Obviously, they believe that it was some sort of a diversionary attack and just basic operational art and military principles. That is not what that was. And yes, the Russian operation in northwest, and northeast of Kiev resulted in, obviously, a great number of Russian casualties. The Russians actually released that initial number after several weeks of fighting, and it was in excess of over 1,000 KIA'd on that initial release of information. Now, we haven't had any other release of information other than some of the release of information from the separatist areas, which also released their figures, what they are reporting in terms of their own killed in action and wounded in action. But given the size of Russia, both in territory and population size, and military capacity, both the military-industrial complex and the military institutions that exist inside of Russia, and given the fact that those institutions, those supply depots, those factories are not being struck by Ukrainian forces, I find it probably unlikely that the Russians are, quote unquote, running out of steam. Now, given the level of fighting that we're seeing right now and over the course of the past few months, obviously it would probably be in Russia's best bet to call on a general mobilization to find a quick end to the conflict, and that means winning the war, and that hasn't been done yet. And obviously, they continue with this more or less what you would define as a covert mobilization and enhanced recruiting efforts that continue. The Ukrainians are fully mobilizing, conscripting, and drafting, and whatever you want to call it. And then obviously recruiting as well, both internal and foreign assets. And we've just received more videos of additional foreign fighters who have been captured by Russian forces. In this case, it was actually an American from California who was shown on said video that was recently captured by Russian forces. But a number of, besides the ATACMs, there's also now talk of the possible deployment of the A-10 Warthog to Ukraine in terms of handing that aircraft, that tank-killing aircraft, over to the Ukrainians. I think that's more of a PR stunt than a system that would be effective. Obviously, it would almost immediately become target number one for Russian forces, and just knowing where it was based in terms of the air base, or however it was wherever it was operating from, would almost become an immediate target for long-range Russian cruise missiles. And then, given the fact that it's obviously not a stealth aircraft, it is not a sonic aircraft, it is a slow-moving aircraft with a very large radar cross-section that probably would not be very effective in the ongoing conflict, and it would probably very, very quickly be shot down at some point. So again, we hear talk about those sorts of systems, and from a uneducated viewer who sees a blurb about the possible deployment of the A-10, they think, oh, that's going to change everything, and that's great news. But the reality is it's not really going to do anything at all. Again, the most important weapon systems that are being handed over to the Ukrainians are weapon systems that you simply don't know about and cannot see, and that is real-time intelligence. It is the most important component of this conflict right now that is being handed over to the Ukrainians. And not only the intel side of it, but the advisory aspect as well. Obviously, there are NATO commanders working directly with Ukrainian forces in advising the Ukrainians on how to deploy, what to deploy, and what to strike next. And that is very, very important for the ongoing war effort for the Ukrainian forces. And then you compound that with those other systems that are being deployed, and now we're hearing about the ATACMS, and that could be a system that could prove very, very challenging for Russian forces. These are just small trucks running around that carry a precision-guided, a very large, long-range precision-guided munition that can hit a wide variety of targets very, very quickly. And when you join that weapon system with the types of intelligence in real-time satellite imaging that is being provided to the Ukrainians, not only satellite imaging, but just a host of intel that is being handed over to the Ukrainians, that is what is causing, in all probability, the Russians the most fits right now in terms of some of these supply depots we've seen hit. Now, at the same time, you have to understand that the Russian concept of Maskarova is very well present. And in all likelihood, there have been a number of targets that the Ukrainians have hit or think they have hit that had some sort of military impact on operations. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. And in all likelihood, that was a target set that was designed and put forward by the Russians for the Ukrainians to hit. And that is probably an attempt to then have the ability to then locate some of those HIMARS systems or some other systems that the Ukrainians are using for long-range attacks deeper into some of the occupied areas that the Russians control in eastern Ukraine. But again, that's kind of where we sit. Again, know that first video, Project Emma, that is not a parody. That is real. Very, very disturbing. Obviously, it's been around a bit. There's other U.S. Army calling videos out there as well. Some are just as bad. Others not so much. You be the judge. You can go check them out yourself. But they've been around a while. And then finally, that really does it for today. We're going to continue to monitor, report, watch what's happening, and we will certainly bring you more information as we get it. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.